Howdy folks, it's Dr. Z, returning for day 4 of VEDA 2014. Finally made a calendar that I think I'll start with talking about pharmacy and what I've experienced so far. And then I'll make videos that are a little more personal, because I'm thinking it should be better for me to talk about something that I've spent the last 6 years learning about first, and then I'll move on to more things that are, once I become more comfortable, then I'll move on to things that are a little more personal to me. So, on with the video. I'll start with why I chose pharmacy and generally talk about what it takes to get started. My dad is in the pharmaceutical industry, and ever since I can remember, when I was really small, he would talk about what he did at work and how he was helping make the drugs that saved people's lives. And it may not sound fascinating from that short description, but to me it was, because he would talk about what little things he could do to help decrease the cost, which would increase the accessibility, which could potentially change people's lives. And he was talking about the small details leading to the bigger picture. And I was always fascinated about that. And so when I was a freshman, I decided I would do research into my future. That research took me to my local pharmacy, and as many people do, they associate big pharma with pharmacy. And now I certainly know that there's a big difference between the two, but I was a freshman in high school. What little did I know? And so I went up to the local pharmacist and said, "Where do you make your drugs?" And luckily they didn't laugh me out the door, because they showed me where they did it. And it was a local compounding pharmacy, so they showed me the world of compounding on top of the world of pharmacy. And after they showed me around their little room, I kind of looked over the counter and said, "Well, why don't you show me what you do over there?" And that was my introduction into real pharmacy. Later on in high school, I found out about SIUE, which was my parents' and my grandparents' alma mater. And I found out that they were opening a school of pharmacy, which was really cool. And so I set my sights to do what I could to get into that school and become a pharmacist, because I always had a yearn in the healthcare field, and I always wanted to help people when they're at their worst. Make a big difference, like I mentioned. But it felt a lot like that destiny when everything started to click. Right after I found out what was in hindsight a stupid mistake, but something that really did change my life. What do you do if you're thinking about becoming a pharmacist? First, do some shadowing opportunities. See what it actually entails. It's more than just giving people medications. It's looking into their history and seeing if that's the right medication they need, and if there's something better they can do, contacting doctors' offices and working with them to get the best things available. And so the first step beyond shadowing is find out which schools you want to go into. Mine was SIUE. For some, it could be Stillcop, UIC, or Ohio State, Purdue. A lot of different opportunities all around. And generally, you have to figure out what are the classes you need before you get in. Generally, it means you need to take multiple chemistry courses, biology courses, and a couple extra science courses as well, along with some communication classes, speech, debate, whatever. Why is communication necessary? Because, you're going to talk to people, patients, doctors, nurses, and so you need to learn how to appropriately get information from people as well as to give information to people. So beyond that, you need to get some experience. So like the shadowing opportunities I mentioned at the beginning, but also maybe getting a technician job, finding out what it actually means to be behind the counter, and working alongside that pharmacist to kind of get a little bigger perspective of that. Now, personally, I didn't become a technician. I didn't go out that, but I did some shadowing opportunities, and I also did some bench work in lab research. That helped me out as far as learning what the chemicals were and how to manipulate them, just general college experience for research. And as I mentioned in the last video, I participated in a lot of leadership roles in student organizations, and they do matter. Some people say they don't, but to me they do, because you really have to be a leader in the pharmacy. specifically in the pharmacies you go to as well as in the field, because you need to be able to stand up for what you're believing in, stand up for what you're saying, and to make a difference in people's lives, you have to stand your ground. And you can only gain that through leadership experiences. So you have to become a leader to really make those tough decisions. And where a mistake could cost you your license or worse, a person's life. Preparation isn't all about what gets you into the school. It also means what you actually get out of the school. Just going to classes and going back home really doesn't make a great pharmacist. Sure, you know a lot, but you're not really going to get that much out of it. You'll have the knowledge, and then once you get in behind the counter, behind the computer, behind the phone, what are you going to do when someone pops up something you didn't learn in class? And so you need to get that experience where you get to be able to handle that experience that you weren't prepared for and all that sort of jazz. And so one thing I recommend is to just join student organizations and get into those leadership positions and foster those skills that are essential behind the counter. And most likely you'll do some clinical work at health fairs, at student events, and those prepare you a lot more than what you'll learn in the classroom, because you'll get the know-how of what the guidelines are in the classroom. And then once you get behind a person and say, well, your blood pressure was 150/95, what does that mean to you? Oh, the guidelines say it's bad. Well, what does that mean? And so you get to learn that interpersonal communication and tie that communication to clinical information that you've learned in your classrooms. But you also get to interact with those people that you'll serve for the rest of your life. And to me, only when you can walk into a table and take a person's blood pressure and counsel them on how they'll need to modify their life if they want to live an extra 5-10 years, all while not looking up the guidelines or looking at your preceptor and saying, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? That's when you really will become ready to be a pharmacist. And that's what it takes to become a pharmacist. If you have any other questions, write them below in the comments or hit me up on Twitter, and I'll put the link in the description. So tomorrow I'll talk a little more about specifically what pharmacists do behind the counter in the likes of, say, Walgreens, CVS, Target, Schnucks. Well, probably won't know Schnucks unless you're in St. Louis, but regardless, I'll talk about what specifically it means to be in a community pharmacy. Till then, this is Dr. Z signing off. See ya.